What is up YouTube, and today we're going to be doing another Wyvern 13 guide because it's been a long while since I've actually made one of these, and to be honest, Wyvern has changed a lot with the release of new units and exclusive equipments, and also just new ways to get gear to prepare for your Wyvern 13 team. So we're going to be doing another guide and just kind of making an ultimate guide for everyone to use. Now, this Google Sheet that I'm using is actually not mine. I decided to actually just use this because I found this online because yeah, there's no real reason for me to remake all of these graphics and just say the same stuff. So I'm just going to use this as a resource. This was written by this guy here. The graphics and emotes are made by these people. These guys are amazing. This guide is pretty good. And there's some stuff I want to actually add on to this. So I'll just be commenting about it. So please make sure you guys actually watch this to the end because there's a lot of important information. And you definitely don't want to miss out on anything because pretty much everything I'm going to be talking about is going to be like a summary of everything. And it's just going to be things that you need to know before you get into Wyvern. So for Wyvern, before you actually make a Wyvern 13 team, you're going to want to clear up to stage 4-10 in episode 2, which is stated right here, because you want to unlock Furious from Connections and also the Holo Trials, where you can get exclusive equipment, which you'll need for your team. Now, while you're clearing up to stage 4-10 in episode 2, if you do have some pieces of the Wyvern team available, you should start using them and leveling them up, awakening them and skill enhancing them as needed, because Wyvern will be the first area of content that you want to farm, so the first 6-star units, the first units that you put your gear on is going to be your Wyvern team. Now, if you're new to the game and are wondering why you have to farm Wyvern or why everyone recommends it, it is because it drops gear, and gear is very important for actually making your units stronger. And through the gear, you're going to see that it drops Speed Set, which is only dropped from Wyvern, right? And Speed Set is going to be the most universal set in the game. You can use this on every unit for PvE. You can use this on a ton of units for PvP, so it's very important to farm. The other sets that can drop are Critical Set and Hit Set. These aren't as used as much. Critical Hit Set is probably going to be the Critical Chance Set is going to be probably the second best set from Wyvern, with Effectiveness Set or Hit Set being the worst. But all three of these sets are usable, and even if you have, a hit set piece that is not going to really activate its set on a unit, if you have very good rolls into the gear, you can just use this as a broken set and just use it for the substats. Very, very common to do with hit sets. So yeah, now we're going to talk about the units and how you want to gear them. So this is the MUI Wyvern 13 team. This is going to be the easiest team comp to actually get started with for Wyvern. Very consistent, it is going to be decently fast and very easy to actually accomplish because all the units are easily available. So your frontline unit will be Angelic Montmorency here. Angelic Montmorency is going to be from Connections, and you definitely want to fill out her specialty change and actually max out her skill tree. I don't know if you guys can see this, so I'll scroll in a little bit more for this graphic. But the way you want to gear her is you want to have her on the free HP set from the Hunt Challenge, and you also want to make sure she's on certain artifacts. So for Angelic Montmorency, it says that it's recommended to use Proof of Valor, Magaraha's Tome, or Egg of Delusion. Actually, there's two more artifacts that I actually recommend for her. You want to use Rod of Amaryllis. It's very, very good. And also Prophetic Candlestone. I think Rod of Amaryllis is going to be your best bet if you're completely new to the game. You might not have this artifact, but this artifact is available currently from the Powder of Knowledge shop. So make sure you guys check that out. If it's available while you guys are watching this video, you definitely want to get it for your Angelic Montmorency because it's very good. Otherwise, you can use the 3-star artifact, Prophetic Candlestick, or even Proof of Valor if you have it. But Proof of Valor is pretty hard to get early on until you get into a guild. So yeah, probably Prophetic Candlestick will be your best option until you actually get a Rod or you get the Proof of Valor from the guild shop. Definitely want to make sure Angelic Montmorency is 6-starred because she is going to be taking all the damage from Wyvern pretty much, and if she's not 6-starred, she'll be a lot squishier, so you definitely want to make sure she's 6-starred. Now, there is another option you can use instead of Angelic Montmorency, and that option I will recommend later on in the video as we talk about why, but for now, let's just talk about the quote-unquote best team. So for the DPS slot, you want Sigrid, which is free from the Wyvern Hunt Challenge. You want to make sure she's on Daydream Joker Artifact and on the attack set from the Hunt Challenge. This set will be efficient, and the stat requirements are listed right here. You want 35% crit chance, 65% effectiveness, and 138 speed. After that, you just stack as much attack and crit damage as possible. Also, you want to make sure she is on her exclusive equipment for the bleed chance for her S1, and you get this from the Holo Trials. That's why you want to get to episode 2 4-10. And you also want to try to get her to 6 stars. Now, honestly, you don't need her at 6 stars. The only unit you need at 6 stars is going to be your Angelic Montmorency. But Sigrid is going to be the second best unit to have 6-starred in this team if you do decide to 6-star her, because she does a lot more damage when she is 6-starred. The other two units you can keep these units at 5 stars. They're mostly support. First, we're going to talk about Mui. So Mui is actually the only unit you have to pull for, but he is a base 3-star unit, so you will eventually get him. There are going to be other options you can use instead of him, which we'll talk about later with the replacement for Junk Montmorency. But this unit is super, super good. You want him on Daydream Joker, you want him on the attack set from the check-in event, and then you want him on an effectiveness ring, which is going to be from Automaton Tower. Even a level 65 ring works as well. You just want him to be at 65% effectiveness, 35% crit chance, and 138 speed. And you definitely need this effectiveness. Guys, if you're completely new to the game, the effectiveness is going to be super, super important so your debuffs stick on the boss. If you guys don't have 65% effectiveness, your debuffs won't land on the boss as often, and that will fail your runs. So you definitely want to make sure you get this effectiveness. And he's very good because he has a lot of good debuffs, and for skill enhances, you're definitely going to want to actually try to max everything because it only costs Catalyst and not Mulagora. But just getting effect chance up on his skills is very good. For Sigurd, it is the same. Didn't mention it before, but you definitely want the effect chance of bleeding on your S1 and also on your S2 because you want the debuffs to stick on the boss. If you guys do not land more than 2 debuffs on the boss, you will fail your run. So you definitely need to make sure you stick debuffs. Next, we have Furious, available from Connections, very strong. You want to use him on the speed set from Adventurer's Path. For the artifact, if you have Song of Stars, you want to use this. Very, very powerful, gives him extra debuffs. If not, you can use Infinity Basket or Daydream Joker, but Song of Stars is by far the best. Similar to Mui, you just need him to be at 65% effectiveness, but you want him to be the fastest on your team because he lands a defense break on the boss for you, and if he's first, he can keep the defense break up on the boss for you and also a crit chance up on your team, which is why the crit chance requirement, as you see on Sigurd and Mui, is so low. It's only 35% chance because you get 15% bonus because Wyvern is fire, and just by having elemental advantage, you get 15%. And then Furious will keep a crit chance buff on your team if he's the fastest permanently, and that crit chance buff gives you 50%, so you total out at 100%. For your exclusive equipment, you want him to be on the S3 blind chance. It will make the boss do even less damage. And for Molagoras or skill enhances, make sure you max out his S2 and get his S3 to maxed effect chance as well. His S1 is available to actually put some skill enhances if you need. It does have an extra chance to burn, but that's really up to you. It's not that necessary. It only gives you 5% per skill enhance, so not really worth it in my opinion. But if you are still struggling on debuffs or want to make your runs more consistent, you want to make sure you have that maxed. Now, the boot slot here is empty because you need him on speed main stat boots. Usually, if you want him to be fastest on your team, on this team comp, you just run him on speed main stat boots. And as you guys can see, it says here, equip any speed main stat boots available from the Conquest Point shop from Arena, or you can just, start farming Wyvern, like Wyvern 10 or 11. And once you see main stat boots, you can just slap it on him and max it out and just make him the fastest on your team. You can also get it from rolling the secret shop if you get gear. Now, this is the mechanics, guys, so I'm not going to talk about this too much in depth. I'm just going to talk about the very important things. First thing is, you want to make sure that you have 65% effectiveness. So you need 65% effectiveness to maximize debuff chances. And this is very important because of the mechanics. So you can see in the bold here, Wyvern will attack a random unit if it has less than 2 debuffs. So this means that if you have a Momo in the front and Junk Montmorency in the front, it doesn't matter if he doesn't have 2 or more debuffs on him because he can attack random units and your DPS units will just die in one hit. So you want to make sure you have 2 debuffs on the boss constantly. Now, it's even better to have 3 because you'll see if you have 3 or more debuffs, the damage is decreased a lot. So that's why you want to really focus on debuffing the boss, and that's why effectiveness is so important. And that's why this team comp is so good because every single damage dealing unit here has a ton of debuffs, a ton, and they're all very good. And Mui also has attack drop, which will actually make a Momo even tankier and harder to kill. Now, the last mechanic is going to be the barrier. So after the boss uses his ultimate skill, there will be a barrier that he gets. And with this barrier, if you actually do not break it by the next turn that he takes, he will one-shot your team. So you need to have decent damage as well. You can't just have completely low damage. If you guys are struggling to kill the barrier, you probably need to actually, upgrade your gear, upgrade your artifacts. Daydream Joker does a ton of damage, or even, 6-star your Sigurd. So that's pretty much it for the mechanics. Now let's actually talk about the units once again. So obviously this is going to be the best option for you to run, but Mui is going to be a unit that you might not get right away because you have to pull for him. And if that's the case, I definitely recommend switching out some units. So I think Sigurd and Furious you want to have no matter what. For Mui, if you cannot pull for him, I would recommend using Clarissa as your 4-star unit. She has a ton of debuffs. make sure you have her on your exclusive equipment as well. Or even Alexa, which is available in connections, so she is very easy to get. The thing is, if you do not have Mui, because you're missing out on the CR push, you're also missing out on the attack break, it's going to raise the gear requirements of your tank by a lot, and also Furious and Sigurd will have to be a little bit faster. You want to add about 30 to 40 speed if Mui actually is not on your team. If you're also not using Mui, instead of Angelic Montmorency, you'll be way better off using Angelica, a 4-star unit, because Angelica is way more bulkier. Now, Angelica isn't as good in PvE later on, but she is so much tankier and can be used in a decent amount of content. So if you do not have Mui and you're seeing that your Angelic Montmorency is dying, you might want to level up your Angelica to replace her. Still recommend, 6-starring your Angelic Montmorency and trying to see if you can make her live through it. If not, you can just level up your Angelica and use her. Even if you 6-star Angelic Montmorency and have to 6-star your Angelica, it is fine because Angelic Montmorency you'll use for the entire duration of you playing Epic 7 because she's so good in PvE. And yeah, we talked about the artifacts before, but I'll talk about it again. Daydream Joker will be the best artifact. It scales incredibly well for PvE with the boss's max HP. Definitely want to make sure you have this on Sigurd and Mui, and then for Furious, Song of Stars if you can. If you're using any other replacement options like Clarissa or Alexa, Daydream Joker is very good on them as well. For your Soul Weaver, your Angelic Montmorency, or in worst case scenario, Angelica, you want to use Rod of Amaryllis or Proof of Valor. Those are both 5-star artifacts. One is available from the Powder of Knowledge shop sometimes, so you want to make sure you check the rotation. Proof of Valor is available from the guild shop. If you don't have these options, you can use Prophetic Candlestick, which I recommend, or even Egg of Delusion. Both of these 3-star artifacts are very good, but obviously the 5-stars will be better. And like I mentioned before, Furious wants Song of Stars, otherwise use it on Daydream Joker. And yeah, Daydream Joker, super strong. So yeah, you're gonna see the speed requirements here, the gear requirements. It's pretty simple. With Mui, you only need 138 speed, with Furious being the fastest by 13 speed. If you don't have Mui, you want to aim for about 147 speed or higher. This will be all you really need, and you're going to want to make sure Furious is as fast as possible. So you want Furious to be at almost 200 speed so that he can keep defense break up. So very important. Now, obviously, if you guys do not have Mui, the gear requirements seem a lot higher because your tank also needs to be tankier without Mui. But until you get Mui, you can just use Alexa, and then afterwards, once you do pull for Mui, which should be easy to get if you just summon and play the game a lot, then you should be able to get him easily. Then you can replace whatever you're using instead of Mui with Mui. Yeah, like I mentioned before, the only unit that needs to be 6-starred is your tank, so your Angelic Montmorency. Everything else can be 5-star, but I definitely recommend 6-starring Sigurd because she gets a ton of damage, and later on in the game, you're going to want your 6-star on Sigurd anyways because she can one-shot Wyvern if you do have really good gear on her, which is going to be pretty late game, but still very good to know. So I'll show you guys how this team actually works and why it's so good, and hopefully you guys can get this working as well and start farming Wyvern 13 ASAP. So this is the same exact team that's recommended and I also recommend, and you guys are going to see that I do have the stat requirements. So first off, all my DPS are above 138 speed. You're also going to see I do have most of these set pieces on my units that are in the document, but because I don't have all of them, I'm just going to be removing some pieces to make this more kind of relatable for you newer players out there, because if I just put everyone on really strong gear, then it's not going to really be a good guide or showcase. So I do have some free-to-play pieces on units and some, empty slots. But basically everything's above 138 speed, with Furious being the fastest, and you want Angelic Montmorency to just be bulky. Also note that my crit chance is going to be 35% or higher. You don't need anything more than 35%. And also for the effectiveness on all my DPS units, it's going to be above 65%. That's pretty much all you need. Also make sure your exclusive equipments are all proper. You have the increased bleeding chance on Sigurd. And you also want to actually have the blind on your Furious's S3, which is going to be this one. And yeah, you're pretty much good to go. Also check your artifacts and definitely make sure that your skill enhances are right. For Sigurd, I have the effect chance on her S1 and S2 all maxed. For Angelic Montmorency, I have all her healing done and I have her skill tree fully maxed out. For Mui, I don't have any skill enhances for him because I don't really need it. But for you guys, you definitely want to make sure you get your S1, your skill 1 to +4, and then your skill 3 to +4 as well. And your S2, it's really up to you. And then for your Furious, you want the S3 at your +6, and then you want your S2 at +1. And for your S1, it's really up to you depending on if you need that extra burn chance. So let's see how the run goes on auto. So this team will not be the fastest, but it will be one of the most consistent and one of the most accessible, which is definitely why I recommend it for a starter team. So as you guys can see, my Furious does start the battle going first. It's perfect order. You just want your Furious to be the fastest because you're going to see that this crit chance buff that he provides is going to be permanently on my team. Also, when we get to the boss phase, you're also going to notice that the defense break that he applies will be on the boss for a lot of the time. As you guys can see, this Song of Stars is very nice as well. It's applying a lot of targets, which is very good. But it's not really required. It's just a bonus to have. If you do have Mui and Cigarette, they should help with your debuffs. Now, the speed tuning here is a little bit weird because Furious did actually use his S2, S3 on the last creep, which means that he won't have it for the boss. But it is okay. You can speed tune this to be more better later on. But in the beginning, don't worry about it too much because with this team comp, you should have more than enough debuffs on the boss here. And as you guys can see, my Mui actually does counterattack with his S2, which puts that decreased attack, which is very good. Furious does S1 and apply the target. Also could have landed the bleed. And my Secret does land the bleed on her S1. So we're at 3 debuffs, which will make the boss do literally no damage to my tank here. You guys can see the 3 debuff combination in line with the attack down on the boss makes it so that he does barely any damage. And because this team comp has so many debuffs, you don't really have to ever worry about that 2 debuff threshold. As long as you have above 2, you're good to go. And because every single one of these DPS units have a ton of debuffs, you're going to notice that it's going to be very rare unless you get super unlucky for your debuffs to miss. Now, there is always a 15% chance for your debuffs to miss, so keep that in mind. If you do get unlucky on some runs, you will not actually be able to keep your debuffs on. But for the most part, this should be very consistent because of the amount of debuffs that we had. And as you guys can see, as soon as we lose the debuffs, we have Furious going with his S3 and just applies more. And then we also have Sigurd and Mui trying to apply more as well with their S2s and S1s, and we're at 5 debuffs now. Now on the barrier phase is what I'm talking about, this barrier. This is going to be the DPS race. If you guys cannot actually kill this barrier before Wyvern takes his turn, your team will most likely wipe. And yeah, it's very nice to have defense break for this, obviously, but it can't really be predicted if you can actually, have your defense break up for this or actually plan for. But as you guys can see, Wyvern moves super slowly in this phase, so you have a lot of time to actually kill his barrier here. And as you guys can see, I killed it and we are good to go. And then this is basically the entire fight, it just repeats, and with this team comp on auto, you should be able to kill this boss super easily. If you guys are struggling, it's most likely because you guys don't have things like your gear maxed out or your units upgraded and stuff like that. And you can see with just 2 6 stars, in Sigurd, you don't even need at 6 stars. It's very easy to clear Wyvern on auto and start farming your mats to actually craft, and your gear also that will drop for your Wyvern, or I guess all of your units for your account. So yeah. That's pretty much it for this video though, guys. Hopefully you guys get into Wyvern. If you guys have any questions or are still struggling for some reason, make sure you guys check out my Discord. If you guys ask there's so many people there that will help you. All very nice, and they're very knowledgeable about the game. And I'm sure anyone at any time is available to actually help you if you guys have questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, if you guys want to see more guides like this in helping your free-to-play account progression, make sure you guys subscribe and also consider hitting that like button to help me out with the algorithm.